All right, so like I just said, we're going to go through this JavaScript and CSS in Rails lab. Don't think it'll take too long to get through, but I know that asset pipeline can be confusing sometimes. So if you have any questions, feel free to just shout them out while I'm going through things, or throw them in the chat, and we'll stop and talk and discuss. And yeah, see where this takes us. So the asset pipeline in Rails is located in our app and assets. And this is where we can keep things that Sprockets will manage for us. I guess manage is an okay phrase to use, but as we change things, Rails is going to automatically update the file, and it brings all the files together, and it manages these things for us. So if we change something in our JavaScript to tell our front end, our browser, that something has changed, it changes a unique identifier on the JavaScript file that it takes and puts together for us. And we define what we want in these files in our application.js, our application CSS. And as you see, it comes with some boilerplate that's commented out comments that tells us exactly, what this file is doing to an extent. All right, so let's start looking at this app, and let's look at the Readme. Almost forgot about that. Real bad habit of not reading the Readmes and just looking at the tests. So objectives: write your own CSS and integrate it into the asset pipeline and use it in views. Write your own JavaScript and integrate it into the asset pipeline and use it in views. So located in this repository is a simple Rails application. Your goal is to create your own JavaScript with CSS and include it into the application. You can run the capybara spec when you are finished to test your solution. Okay, so apparently we're not even going to really need these tests to start. First, add the following JS. So in app assets JavaScript, let's split this up. Create the file hide.js. So when we're building our JavaScript, we build it in this JavaScript folder. There's hide.js. And we can put folders in here. We can build this file structure out however we want. I actually worked at a company that had all of our entire React application inside of the JavaScript folder in the pipeline. So that was hundreds of files and multiple folders and lots of nesting. So you can build it out however makes the most sense for you and the complexity of your pipeline. So in here, we're going to create a function. Let's make this function hide when clicked. Okay, hide when clicked. And all right, that hides the element that was clicked. So let's see. Let's look at what our application looks like. Capybara is going to actually click these things, looking for the JavaScript to do things, or the jQuery to do things. So Rails server. Cool. Let's get this open. Get a new window up here. Okay, so what we're looking to do is click to hide me. We want to click this and we want it to disappear. So let's find what we're actually trying to. Let's look at our. All right. ID hide this. So we want to grab that ID to change. Okay. So first thing that we need to do is we're going to need to grab this line of code that we have in our HTML. So when we click, we're going to have an action that fires. And with that, using jQuery, we're going to need to handle what's getting clicked. So let's call our target. And let's pass in an argument to this click. And set that variable and then let's call hide on it. And this is jQuery methods that we're calling. And then here we're going to grab that, hide this element by its ID, and we're going to say when it's clicked, we're going to call this function. So what we're saying is we're going to attach this to our page. It's going to be imported in the JavaScript. So our JavaScript is going to be looking at this, hide this ID element. And when we click it, we're going to fire this function. This function is going to set a variable for the target. That target is going to be the event target. So the thing that was clicked, click is the event. And the target of that event is this element. And then we're going to call hide on it. So now what we need to do to make this JavaScript actually come in to our file, and where that happens is in our views layouts. If we look at our application, we have this JavaScript include tag application. So that's telling Rails to go to the asset pipeline, so the JavaScripts folder. We want to include this application file. Now, we could just include the hide file as well. However, the application file allows us to just add additional files. So we only end up loading one JavaScript file. So following our convention, we do a require, and because this is in the same folder as this application file, we just say hide. We don't have to worry about the .js on the end. This application.js file is in the JavaScript folder. It's smart enough to know what's going on and that it doesn't need .js on the end. With this, I should have, let me see if I can find it. Actually, okay, here's a JavaScript file. I want to copy this. I always forget which one I want. There we go, that's what I want. Oh, copy. Copy. All right. And let's make a file in the root here. I want to show excuse me. So this was our original file. This might be hard to compare, but that file name is going to change. Rails is going to change it for us, and that is what I want to illustrate here. that Rails is going to change that, and that's going to tell our browser that it needs to download this file again, because our browsers are smart enough that they want things to be faster. They're going to cache files. They're going to save them locally to our computers, so that every time we go to a website, if the files are the same, depending on how long it's been, the files will already be on our computer downloaded. We don't have to wait for them, and they come a lot faster. And this all goes on behind the scenes, and it makes our lives a lot better as far as browsing around the web and how long things take to download. There's actually a setting where you can put disable cache on sites, and you can noticeably see a difference. If you ever want to play around with sites, you can turn off your cache and just click around and see how things change. So now let's reload this. And while we're in this Rails server, we will see both files. And this is for debugging. Once things are moved into a production environment, you should see one file that gets incremented. However, this one should have inspector. I think this should have a new name still, because it is different. Although it might not. Yes. So you see this file has a different file name now. So that's something that Rails takes care of for us. It's going to automatically add this hash, or maybe this is a UUID. It's a really long combination of letters and numbers. I'm not exactly sure how they determine that, but it's supposed to be unique, and I'm sure it is unique, having that many characters and numbers. And that tells our browsers to re-download things fresh after we change things. So that's nice that we don't have to worry about telling our browser to change that. I've definitely run into issues where browsers keep the same code, and due to cache settings and such, and when you make changes, users don't see them until they do a hard refresh. And that's not fun, because you can't tell users like, oh, you have to do a hard refresh on the site or it's not going to work right. That bug is going to be there. People don't understand why. So I do think that now with our jQuery, this should disappear when we click it. Yes. Okay, cool. Let's see what else we are going to be doing in this lab. Next, add the following CSS. So our CSS is also in our layout file. It's above our body because we want the CSS to load before the JavaScript. But other than that, it's the same idea. There's a style sheet link tag. It's going to an application. So it's going into this style sheets and the assets to the application. It's going to load that. So let's make our style sheet links.css. So let's create this error class. And with this, create a CSS class called error that changes the color of the text to red. Add this class to the link on the root page. So we want this class of error, we want the color to be red. Cool. And now we need to add this class to the link on the root page. So let's go to our view, home index, and we need this class now. Class error. So let's reload. This is still purple. Oh wait. add this to the link. Yes, it's supposed to be on the link. So the reason that this hasn't changed is because we haven't added links to our application.css. And to do that similarly, we can add it with a star equals, and then we'll require links. And that will pull in our links CSS into this application CSS. And let's see what we have now. And now it's red. It just disappears too. All right, what's next? Create another CSS class called CoolBackground that makes the background gray. All right. Let's go background color, gray. All right, so we've already taken care of importing that to our application CSS. Add this class to the body tag, all right, of the layout, of the application layout. Okay, so we're going to want every page to have this color. So class equals cool background. All right, let's see, that should do it. There we go, it's gray. So something that I don't know if you noticed, but in our JavaScript application, we have this require jQuery, but we don't have jQuery anywhere in this folder. So you might be wondering where that's coming from. And that's coming from a gem. So in our gem file, we have jQuery Rails. So if we look this up, it's going to tell us how to use it. And with this, the jQuery and jQuery UJS files will be added to the asset pipeline and available for you to use. If they're not already in, by default, add these lines. So this is telling us that jQuery is going to be added when we run bundle and install jQuery or jQuery Rails. So typically, these things will be added for you when the gems are bundled. However, it is always good to double check and look at the application.js. Something else that you might run into is that in these asset pipeline files, they load in order. So I've dealt with apps where specific JavaScript and specific CSS and such had to load before or after something else. And typically, though, those things are known by the people who write those gems and libraries and such. However, sometimes they're not. And hunting them down in the issues and such on GitHub or finding the documentation or forums or things or the ever omnipresent for the developers Stack Overflow might be where to go when things aren't working exactly like you think. But typically, things just have to get in here because they're all kind of going to be smashed together in the end. And then, yeah, that should pass our test. So let's see. I can't ever remember. Is it Control Shift tick? Where are we? Your own JS and CSS in Rails. Cool, and all our tests pass. So that's that lab, along with a little bit of extra info about kind of what the asset pipeline is doing for us. It's pretty neat. It was, still is pretty cool what it can do. And it was definitely revolutionary when it came out. Like I said, Rails does offer alternatives now to using the default asset pipeline. There's the Webpacker gem, which allows you to use Webpack with Rails. So you completely can replace the asset pipeline, or actually this one, it coexists with the asset pipeline. However, you can start a new app as of Rails 5.1 with this Webpack flag, and it'll be installed for you. And then, yeah, there's some different things that you'll have to set up if you do it that way. But Webpack has become very popular, so utilizing it in Rails is something that the Rails team saw was something people wanted, something people were using. This Webpacker gem was around before Rails 5.1, prereqs Rails 4.2 plus. So even in something like this lab, it could technically be installed, and Ruby 2.2. So yeah, it should work. But yeah, React, Angular, Elm, and Vue support out of the box. Things like what we're doing for the final project at Flatiron with a React front end and a Rails API backend. This is probably a different way to get there. But another option, I think the integration of these things and the iteration of the Rails team shows that they're trying to stick around for the long haul. They said, Rails views were awesome, but not everybody wants them anymore. So we're adapting and changing as the times change. Any questions, comments? Does this make sense? Does this not make sense?
Yes, it does make sense.
Cool. Glad to hear it. I do think this lab doesn't dive into some of the more complexities, but it's a good kind of, starting point. Like I said, you might not see it too much, but when you get out there and if you're developing with the asset pipeline, I've seen these be 100 lines long, because of all the things that are being required in, and they can get pretty complex, but great.